my topic is going to be the other F word. I am not talking about Frosted Flakes, I am talking about feminism. And so when I was asked to do this, it took me a long time to figure out what my topic was going to be. But since about 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to teach a women's and gender studies class called Working Women. And again, for those of you that don't know me, I'm an associate professor of accounting, and I've been teaching for over 20 years. And at my last institution, we had something called Carthage Symposium, which was interdisciplinary classes. And so you brought two different disciplines together. And so I had a political science, sociology professor friend that asked me to team teach a class about women in business. And up to that point, I had never really given much thought about being a feminist or what feminism meant. But that class teaching that class actually changed my life, because it gave me a sense of this thing that had influenced my life and influenced a lot of people's lives that I didn't ever really acknowledge or, process as part of who I am. And so the reason I picked feminism is because, and the topic is why it's still important. So I have this wonderful article by Leonard Priss that I think is really critical, and it examines the fact that people don't like to use that term, or when they hear the term feminism, they kind of cringe or roll their eyes or think, oh my gosh, it's all about bashing men. But it's so much more than that. And what I've come to learn about feminism is that it really impacts all parts of society and what we do and how we function. So I brought some of my favorite books that are related to feminism that kind of came out of teaching, that first teaching experience of the Working Women class, as we called it. And it kind of really opened my eyes. And once I started teaching, I think I taught that team talk class 4 times with my peer. And then I started teaching some intro to women's and gender studies classes, which was a survey class. And that really solidified the importance of the topic, and I really like teaching it because I got to facilitate and let students, college students, understand that feminism isn't something to roll their eyes at. It's not about bashing men, but it gave them the power to actually understand the things in society that kind of influences who they are, where they are, and what they can think about in the future. And so some of the topics that I think were particularly important to me, I do have some notes here, that when we talk about feminism, that makes it still important today is the fact that there are certain issues that we're still dealing with. The first thing I was going to kind of mention was equal pay. And part of the feminist struggle is the fact that today, on average, women still make about 80%, and again, this is on average, about 80% of what men make. In some professions it's closer, some professions there's a bigger gap. But again, this idea of equal pay and women not making as much as men is something that's often discounted, and they try to rationalize it. And so I actually pulled up just one quick example of, again, why this is still an important topic. During last summer, the U.S. national soccer team, I don't know if you've heard about this or heard this in the news, but 5 members of the U.S. national soccer team actually sued the U.S. Soccer Federation because they were receiving so much less compensation. So the women actually won the 2015 World Cup, and their bonus was $75,000 for winning the World Cup. But if the men had won it, they would have gotten a bonus of $350,000. So again, as much as we think that feminism and women's lib and equal pay should be a reality, we see in real terms that this is not the case. And again, I think it's important for all students to understand, all people to understand that, again, this fight for equality, although we have a lot of opportunities, is not by any way over. And I think the equal pay is something that, again, we as people, men as managers, women as managers, we should support each other to make sure that women and men are getting paid equal amounts for equal jobs. Another topic that became really important to me as I taught the women's and gender studies classes that has to do with feminism is about the Title IX, the benefits of Title IX. Has anybody heard of Title IX? Okay, so Title IX, again, we usually kind of associate that with sports in high school and college level, that if there's a men's team, there should be equal resources dedicated to women's teams. But it actually extends beyond just sports and athletics, but it means that women and men should have equal opportunities in any academic environment. And again, this Title IX, we can talk about classroom opportunities, which again has expanded a lot of professions and opportunities that women have been able to take advantage of. But the other thing that has become more apparent recently is the importance of Title IX as it relates to sexual violence, especially sexual violence on college campuses. And again, you know, I'm not going to say every other day, but there's often enough in the news we hear about, you know, big institutions where there's been sexual assaults and sexual violence perpetrated on campus, and the administration has turned a blind eye on it. And so this actually became, I don't want to say a personal quest or something, but it became really personal because, again, having taught for over 20 years, I've come across students that have been sexually assaulted and felt like there was nowhere to go and felt less protected on a college campus, which is something that should not be happening. And again, this is not just a women's issue because, again, we're talking about sexual assault can happen to both males and females, any gender on college campuses. Again, this is not really necessarily Title IX, but in the military, sexual assault becomes even more of an issue. I think 1 out of 4 women in the military is sexually assaulted, and the numbers are almost as high for men in the military. And again, having the resources and having the support, again, feminism is not just about, again, it's not just about women, it's about kind of social justice for everyone. And that's another important message that I got out of teaching or got from teaching these women's and gender studies classes is that, again, what we're talking about are really social justice issues. And they continue to be really important. My other main thing that I really wanted to talk about was reproductive rights, but I could go on for too long for that. But I wanted to pull out, I have a couple things that I wanted to talk about that were in the news recently, again, depending on what news you follow. The first one that I saw this and I said, oh, I have to talk about this, is at the beginning of February, apparently Donald Trump made some kind of comment about he wanted his female staff to dress like women. And so the question is, so there was a hashtag that started on Twitter about called Dress Like a Woman. And so there were some images that, you know, women posted. So we have women in the military dressed as soldiers, so hashtag Dress Like a Woman. And then we actually have a judge wearing her pussy hat, saying, you know, again, these are all kind of identifying. So when somebody says dress like a woman, what does that mean? And in today's society, because of feminism and the feminist movement, we don't feel the constraints of having to dress a certain way to be like a woman. And so here's another picture of a soldier, a little bit more up close. And then I think there was my favorite one. Oh, there's another one that I had originally that was some astronauts. And again, the hashtag was always dressed like a woman. And the one with the astronaut said, you know, hashtag dress like a woman space version. And then the Supreme Court justices. And so again, as much as we want to discount the importance of feminism, these pictures represent the importance of what feminism has allowed us as women to do and has given us so many different opportunities. My final example, again, earlier this month, again, during the Jeff Sessions hearings, Elizabeth Warren was trying to read a statement by Coretta Scott King that was basically very much against Jeff Sessions, and she was basically shut down by some male senators, and she was basically ousted from the rest of the hearing. And again, there was a line that said she was warned and yet she persisted. So again, on Twitter, there were some really great images, and of course it was hashtag nevertheless she persisted. And so this is Susan B. Anthony's tombstone with a lot of I voted stickers, which again, that was kind of a picture that came out of, well, that was from the November 8th election. And then just some other really important historical women that again fought for what they believed needed to be done in order to move ahead and to have a more just and equal society. So I think I came in just like a minute under time, and again, I could have gone on and on about reproductive rights, but that would have taken us a long time. But I think I've become really passionate. My kids, you know, they get to hear it all the time. But again, I think it's really important that we try to embrace the word feminism and accept it and appreciate it for all the things that it has allowed us to do. And again, the effect not just on women, but on men has provided different opportunities in a lot of different ways. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. My hands are freezing.